Ladies and gentlemen, dear representatives of media, thank you for coming here and finding time to join us. As you know, Latvia's attempts and Latvia's efforts to join the OECD during the last years can be seen as marathon. It ended as spurt. Now we have today been visited by Mr. Frantz, Deputy Secretary General of the OECD, to speak on the Latvia's accession to the OECD. At first, the Minister of Foreign Affairs will speak. Dear colleagues, we just had a meeting with the Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Frantz of the OECD. He came here yesterday after the positive decision of the OECD taken yesterday on the accession of Latvia to the OECD. We have already met some representatives of the media yesterday to speak about the benefits Latvia will gain from the membership in the OECD. Therefore, today I would like to speak more not about the past, but instead about the future. That was also the things we discussed with the Deputy Secretary General. First of all, I expressed my gratitude to the Secretary of the organization and Secretariat for the good cooperation during the negotiation process. I believe that without the support from the Secretary and Secretariat, we wouldn't be able to have such a great progress in a short time. Secondly, I also acknowledged to Mr. Frantz that this is just the beginning of our way. We clearly understand that there are still so many things to do in further implementation of the recommendations, in particular related to corporate governance, financial sector, anti-bribery issues, and other issues. We may not get relaxed and sleep on our laurels. But this is not simply because that is demanded by the OECD. This is in our own interests. We also spoke about the follow-up and further steps to come. These were the issues I discussed with the Prime Minister yesterday too. I hope that till the end of May, the government and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will step up their efforts to draft the proposal for the accession agreement. And on the 2nd of May, the Prime Minister of Latvia will sign the accession agreement in Paris. Soon after the signing, we will file the ratification proposal to the government. Therefore, I believe that till the midsummer, we will finish all this procedure. With the submission of the ratification instrument in the depository in Paris, Latvia will formally become a full-fledged member of the OECD, its 35th member state. But as I said, we should look in the future, not to the past. Therefore, today we already discussed the issues that will be of interest to us as a member state of the OECD. There's no doubt that we will try to be active member of the OECD committees. We will do our best to adopt the experience and best practices of the OECD regarding education, corporate governance, economic development, finances, and other sectors. We as well discussed particular and concrete issues related to development cooperation. There's a Development Cooperation Committee in the OECD, the same way as it is in the European Union. We will provide our experience to the OECD because we have a vast experience related to development cooperation with Eastern Partnership countries and we have unique expertise in many areas. We will also support our neighbors Lithuania in their accession process. We have consulted them already on our experience and on our expertise, and we will provide full support to Lithuania's accession process. There is no doubt that we will continue cooperation also in issues that are interesting for Latvia's development in investment attraction, as well as facilitation of cooperation with countries beyond the European Union. That would be the conclusion of my today's speech. I would like to thank all my colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Latvia. This marathon, as referred to by Mr. Edgars, started in 1996, but the last 3 years have been a sprint. I would once again like to thank all my colleagues in the ministry, also colleagues in the government administration, the last 3 prime ministers, Valdis Dombrovskis, Lemdot Straujuma, and Māris Kučinskis, as well as the president, state administration, and everyone who have paid their effort and have been involved in the process. But as I said, this is just the beginning, and it's only in our hands how much we use all the opportunities. Thank you. Now I give the floor to Mr. Frantz.
This is a great day for Latvia, and it's also a great day for the OECD. I'm delighted to be here in Riga to congratulate the foreign minister and the government, and most importantly, the people of Latvia on this significant achievement. You have joined an organization that prides itself on setting the highest standards for government accountability, for responsible business conduct, and for economic progress. And these are all factors that will benefit the people of Latvia. For me, this is an especially bright day because my previous trips here to Riga instilled in me a great admiration and affection for Latvia and for its people, and for all that you've achieved in the last 25 years. I know that this weekend is the Riga Marathon, but this other marathon has been completed. And it's been a difficult process, or a long process anyway, of cooperation and coordination between 3 Latvian administrations and the OECD. But this is, as the minister said, just the beginning. And it's the beginning of a relationship that will bring multiple benefits to the people of Latvia and to your fellow members in the OECD. The OECD accession process involved in-depth reviews by 21 OECD committees in areas spanning corporate governance, anti-bribery, investment, environmental policy, health, consumer policy, just to name a few. We like to call the accession process a 360-degree review of a country's legislation, policies, and practices against the OECD standards. It's a rigorous process, and it's one which has involved almost every Latvian ministry and government agency, as well as the active engagement of civil society here in Latvia. The recommendations made in the course of the accession process have been a catalyst for important reforms in Latvia in areas including corporate governance of state-owned enterprises, anti-money laundering measures, and investment liberalization. We congratulate Latvia on the significant progress it has made in a short space of time and on its responsiveness to the recommendations made by the OECD committees to support Latvia's own domestic policy agenda. And let me just stress that this is really about helping Latvia. It's about another milestone in Latvia's progress toward the top ranks of the world's communities. And so therefore it's an endorsement of the government, of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and of all the other ministries. Now, the OECD membership will allow Latvia to continue to improve its policies and its practices. As an OECD member, Latvia will tap into a vast reservoir of OECD expertise, advice, policy dialogue in order to support policymakers and reformers. And let me just say, from a personal perspective, I joined the OECD 7 months ago from the U.S. State Department, which was the capacity in which I was here last May for World Press Freedom Day, and to talk about one of your neighbors in particular. But what I found when I joined the OECD was that it's really like jumping into a knowledge ocean. We have 500 PhDs within the House, and we have another 2,000 people who have real-world experience. And the learning process there, the resources that will be available to Latvia are endless. And given the way Latvia has been engaged actively and constructively in the accession process, I'm confident that in the years to come, Latvia will get the most out of its membership within the OECD. Latvia will learn from the experiences of other OECD members in identifying the best options for achieving its policy goals, and it will participate in setting new global standards for member countries and for partner countries. All of this contributes to fulfilling the OECD's goal of creating better policies for better lives, for the citizens of its member countries, for partner countries. And also, we will learn from Latvia. The accession process with Latvia occurred at a very fast pace, thanks to the commitment of the minister and of the entire government here in Riga. And we have developed some innovations as a result of this experience that will help the OECD as we work with other countries on the accession path, including your neighbors in Lithuania. Now that the Council has made its decision, an accession agreement will be signed, as the Minister said, between Latvia and the OECD at a special ceremony during the OECD Ministerial Conference on June 2nd in Paris. The accession agreement will then be ratified by the Parliament here in Riga, and Latvia will become the 35th member of the OECD on the date that ratification document is deposited with our French hosts. So the accession of Latvia contributes to our efforts also to transform the OECD into a more diverse and inclusive institution. The OECD will benefit from having Latvia's voice at the table. It will enrich our discussions and our policy debates, and Latvia can count on the OECD to work as a partner in advancing its domestic policy priorities and in ensuring that its economy delivers the best possible results for Latvia and for its citizens. But this is, as the Minister said, the beginning of the relationship, and there is continuing work for Latvia to do, and the OECD Secretariat will be working hand in hand with them to advance this evolving relationship, and we look forward to monitoring progress on several fronts as we work together. And I want to warmly congratulate Latvia on this momentous achievement and let you know that we will look forward to working with the 35th member of the OECD. Thank you very much.
Frantz kungam par lieliskajiem vārdiem. Vai ir kādi jautājumi?
Thank you, Mr. Frantz. Are there any questions from the media? Alexander Sasha.
They will gain from the accession to the OECD. Could you quantify them a bit more? Are there, both were referring also to terms of investment, are there any experiences of other countries? How much, so to say, money comes into Latvia now? And the second question would go to Mr. Frantz. You also mentioned Lithuania. You're having negotiations with them. Are there any, or can you report a bit about the prospects and also any timelines or when we can expect actually then the invitation for Lithuania? Thank you.
Okay, happy to start. There are both tangible and intangible benefits for a country joining the OECD. I think your question goes to some of the tangible ones. And, let me just talk about a couple. We're working very closely with the government of Slovenia. We've had multiple teams in Slovenia over the past year to work with them on what they have identified as their priorities. So the first thing is that this is a relationship between the OECD and its member countries that is based on helping the member countries. We go talk to them and identify their priorities. So in the case of Slovenia, they had already started a project called Vision 2050, looking at a blueprint for the future of Slovenia. And they asked for our help in mapping out various technical issues on that. And one of those technical issues, which I think is applicable here in Latvia, is pension reform and long-term care. Latvia, like Slovenia, like the United States, like many other developed countries, has an aging population. And the question is, how do you deal with that aging population? You know, what are going to be the pillars that will help support them as they leave the workforce? And so how do you develop a more flexible work policy to keep these people working? How do you develop pension systems in the private sector that work in concert with pension systems from the public sector? You know, so those are some of the ways we're working concretely with Slovenia. Another benefit, perhaps intangible though, is that Latvia's accession to the OECD is a signal to the investment world that this is an open, rule of law state, that you can come here and invest and know that your investment will be governed by standards and practices that meet the highest possible international standards. And so I'm sure that this is going to help attract foreign direct investment to Latvia. I think that there are concrete recommendations that we have for dealing with small and medium enterprises. That's a focus of our work at the OECD, and we have concrete recommendations there. And I think if you look at Latvia and all three of the Baltic countries, as well as many Eastern European countries, you see that small and medium enterprises are really the engines of growth, and they're entities that have been damaged by the economic slowdown since 2008, and we've come up with very concrete policies for helping clear away some of the regulations, for improving their access to credit. So what will that mean in real benefits for Latvians? That will mean growth in the SME arena, and that will mean more jobs. That will mean more exports. That will mean bringing them into the global market system. You know, so those are some of the tangible and intangible benefits, I think. But most importantly, to go back to what I said in the opening, my opening remarks, and what the minister said, this is the beginning of a relationship, and all of the technical and capacity building resources of the OECD will be available to Latvia. On the Lithuanian question, the process is going very smoothly. Lithuania's accession began 2 years after Latvia's did, and so it's perfectly natural that Latvia should join the OECD sooner. But the process with Lithuania is going smoothly, and I was glad to hear from the minister this morning that the Lithuanians have reached out and asked for advice from Latvia, because we're there to help the Latvians, but the fact that their neighbors and allies here can provide them with the advice that helped Latvia move so smoothly through the process will be invaluable for Lithuania.
Well, just to add, because we have been already discussing the benefits of the membership into OECD for quite a time, and I think that Doug has really presented an excellent overview. I just want to say 2 points. The first one is that already through the process of accession, we were benefiting from the advice and assistance of experts of OECD, negotiations throughout different committees. And I think that we had already very good advice, and also we have already had a still ongoing reform of our state-owned enterprises management system, which is for the benefit of our own people, to make our state enterprises more efficient, their management and governance more transparent, and more efficient player to the economy as such. Second, when we ratified the Convention on the Automatic Exchange on Taxes, I think it's also a great step forward, also addressing issues that is sometimes being heavily discussed here, that is how to collect taxes, how to make the tax collection more efficient. We have also joined and ratified some conventions that are related to the bribery issues. And you know that we have also amended our criminal code in accordance to some of recommendations as well as conventions. So that also makes the fight against corruption more efficient. Having said that, this is the legal framework. Still, the issue is how you implement it. And I think that also colleagues in different government agencies that are directly responsible for those issues have benefited also from the advice and recommendations, and we will continue to do that. Then let me just underline that we also see, and that has already said that this is a kind of quality mark for investors, that rules of engagement, if you wish, are the same as in other OECD countries. More transparency, the legal framework, the let's say principles of market economy one more time reaffirmed. Having said that, let's not make mistakes. We still understand how many things we need to do here internally. Among those, I can mention insolvency process. I had yesterday evening a good meeting with members of British Chamber of Commerce, and we discussed some of issues we have here. So from that point of view, this is only beginning of relationship. It's going to be continuous work to address some of issues, but still we also see OECD as the great think tank from where you can get a lot of ideas, be it education and health system, or be it development assistance, or be it welfare system and social security system. And again, a lot depends on us, how much we implement. OECD is not a kind of coercive organization with sanctions and so on. It is more a think tank, it's a more the club of like-minded nations, and I'm really happy that soon we will be the full-fledged member of this club.
Paldies.